Hello everybody, let me tell you a new story today. Today's story comes from Mu, who heard it from his good friend Liang. This story is a first-hand experience of Liang's uncle, whom we'll call Uncle Liang. Uncle Liang and his nephew Liang are from Qinghai. Uncle Liang was a bus driver, driving a bus along the Xining to Liujiaxia route. Liang was a factory worker. The story took place in the year 2010, just 3 months before Uncle Liang's retirement. He had worked for the company for many years and was one of the most senior drivers in his company. Since he was about to retire, the company's leaders took good care of him, scheduling all his work during the day, so he did not have to drive at night. His working hours were from 8 a.m. departure to 12 p.m. arrival at Liujiaxia, followed by an afternoon rest and an overnight stay at the company's dormitory in Liujiaxia, then driving back to Xining the next morning at 8 a.m. This work schedule was quite comfortable. The drive from Xining to Liujiaxia took 4 hours, and the road conditions were poor, especially roads in mountains. Now a tunnel has been opened, but at that time there wasn't one. The mountain they had to pass was called Qingsha Mountain, known for its beautiful scenery, a paradise for photographers. However, for bus drivers, the mountain road was so bad there was a part of the road that was very narrow, with sharp turns, one side being the mountain and the other a cliff. A moment of inattention could lead to a fatal accident. After the tunnel was opened, the travel time was halved and much safer. But during Uncle Liang's time as a driver, he had driven a bus on this road for many years, although there were traffic accidents on this road every year. He had excellent driving skills and was very familiar with this road. Each time he drove on the road of Qingsha Mountain, he would be fully focused, which ensured that he had no traffic accidents throughout his career. This incident occurred on December 8th, 2010, a date Uncle Liang would remember for the rest of his life. That morning was no different from any other. After inspecting the bus, he drove to the passenger boarding area and many passengers boarded. He started the bus promptly at 8 a.m., heading from Xining to Liujiaxia. About 2/3 of the way there, just before reaching the Qingsha Mountain Road, the bus suddenly malfunctioned. The engine made a buzzing sound, but the bus couldn't shift gears properly and could only move at a low speed. He had to pull over and then called the company for rescue. He calmed down the passengers, told them not to worry, that the company would send a new bus soon and there wouldn't be much delay. At around 11:30 a.m., the company's bus finally arrived, continuing the journey to Liujiaxia with the passengers. However, Uncle Liang couldn't leave. He had to wait for the company's mechanics to fix the bus. The mechanics did not arrive until 1 in the afternoon. He took them to have lunch and then hurried back to repair the bus, which was finally fixed by 4 p.m. The mechanics left, and he needed to drive the bus to Liujiaxia so he could work normally the next day. But by then, he was feeling a bit sleepy. If it weren't for the bus breaking down, he would have arrived in Liujiaxia by noon, and he would have had a rest after lunch. But today he had no time to rest, and he was feeling sleepy. He thought it would be best not to drive while tired, so he took a short nap in a cab for half an hour before setting off. However, he ended up sleeping until almost 8 p.m. Worried about his work for the next day, he started driving towards Liujiaxia. He did not dare to drive too fast with the newly repaired bus, so he patiently drove slowly and soon reached the Qingsha Mountain roads. There were no streetlights on the mountain roads, and there were no other vehicles. But he was not afraid. After all, he had been driving on this road for so many years, and he was very familiar with it. As he was driving, suddenly he noticed a blue tractor ahead. There was a woman standing in a trailer, short, chubby, and he couldn't see her face. But he recognized the blue clothes. Why? Because it was the uniform of the factory that his nephew Liang worked for. He honked the horn, and the tractor driver turned on the right turn signal and pulled over to the side to let the bus pass. Uncle Liang accelerated slightly and overtook the tractor. Less than 3 minutes later, he saw another blue tractor ahead again. There was nothing unusual about that, but what was unusual was that there was also a short, chubby woman standing in a trailer. Wasn't this the tractor I have just overtaken? He thought, but he had been driving on this road for many years and he knew there were no other roads where a tractor could overtake his boss. He felt strange and wanted to see who was driving. So he honked the horn again, and the tractor driver turned on the right turn signal and pulled over to the right. Uncle Liang accelerated, and as the two vehicles were side by side, he looked over and was shocked to see that there was no driver in the tractor, and the woman's face was bloody and fleshy, with no nose, no lips, and her teeth exposed. Uncle Liang saw this thing and didn't care about the boss anymore. He stepped on the accelerator pedal hard and sped away, leaving the tractor far behind. He was just about to breathe a sigh of relief when he inadvertently looked at the rearview mirror inside of the bus and saw a person sitting in the last row on the left side of his boss. The person was bent over, head down, but eyes raised. You can imagine. Wearing blue factory uniform with a bloody and fleshy face, no nose, and no lips, exposing teeth. It was the same woman he had seen standing in the trailer of the tractor just now. Uncle Liang felt like he was about to faint. He drew the bus like crazy, then turned into a county at a fork in the road. This was not the way to Liujiaxia, but he needed to get to a place with more people. His heart was pounding. After driving for 5 or 6 minutes, he finally saw other vehicles and people. He felt like his uniform was all soaked and sticking to his body. With sweat pouring down his back, he finally found a restaurant with quite a few people and parked the bus at the entrance. He mustered the courage to look in a rear view mirror, but there was no one. He looked again, and there was still no one. Suddenly, he felt a buzzing in his ears, as if he had just narrowly escaped death and had now come back to life. He got off the bus and ran into the restaurant, then calmed down for a long time, ate something, and called the company to adjust the next day's working schedule, changing the 8 a.m. departure from Liujiaxia to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. He dared not drive to Liujiaxia anymore and stayed in a nearby hotel that night. The next day, he did not leave for Liujiaxia until close to 12 a.m. as the yang energy was strongest at noon. When he picked up the passengers from Liujiaxia to Xining in the afternoon, he still felt very uneasy. But he had to drive on the Qingsha Mountain road. He was anxious, sweating, and kept looking at the rear view mirror and the passenger to see if there was any problem. Fortunately, everything seemed normal. Just as they were about to leave the Qingsha Mountain road, a passenger suddenly shouted, "Uncle, uncle, what's wrong with you?" Here, uncle is a polite term used for older men, a respectful form of address for men of a certain age. The person shouted again, "Driver, pull over!" Uncle Liang stopped the bus quickly and went to the back road to see what had happened. It turned out that an old man seemed to have had a sudden illness, sitting there with his hand on his chest and foam at the corner of his mouth. He checked the passenger and found that there was no breath or heartbeat. The old man had a heart attack and had died. Everyone hurriedly searched the old man's bag and pockets to see if he had any medicine with him, but they did not find any. Uncle Liang's cold sweat came down again. The old man who died of a heart attack was sitting in the same seat as the creature from last night. Someone had already called an ambulance, but it would take an hour to arrive. The passengers couldn't stay on a bus with the dead person, so Uncle Liang forced himself to drive to a small supermarket nearby and asked everyone to get off and wait for the company to send another bus. Later, he called the company and asked for one bus and 2 drivers. Why? Because he dared not drive anymore. Back to Xining. Uncle Liang took a leave. He did not tell anyone about the strange things he had encountered. The leader thought that Uncle Liang was not feeling well and told him to rest at home. They even sent one of the leaders with gifts to visit him. But Uncle Liang said, "I'm fine. I'm just uncomfortable, and please go back. I'll be fine on my own." This was not his usual demeanor. After the visitor left, his wife felt something was wrong and told the family. So many relatives and friends went to visit him. Liang and his father went too. The relatives and friends were all sitting at Uncle Liang's house, but he did not talk to anyone, just sat in the living room, smoking. After smoking for more than an hour, he finally spoke, saying to Liang, "Is your factory working on big orders again? You guys are working from early morning till late at night, but you have to take care of your health." Everyone was puzzled. After not speaking for several days, why did he suddenly say such a strange sentence? Liang said, "Uncle, you have to take care of yourself. I'm fine. What exactly happened to you?" Uncle Liang said, "You all leave. I'm fine. Liang, you stay. I have something to ask you." Everyone else left, and Uncle Liang told Liang about the strange things he had encountered while driving that night. He also said, "You go to the factory tomorrow and ask if anyone knows about this incident, whether they were employees of your factory, whether they died in an accident on Qingsha Mountain Road." The next day, Liang went to work and asked a few colleagues. And yes, There was an accident. It happened before Liang came to this factory. A traffic accident that occurred in the summer of 2006. One day, the number 3 assembly line of the factory had a problem, and it was not fixed until 8 p.m. after emergency repairs. Then the workers worked overtime until 10 p.m. It was so late that there was no shuttle bus, so some people took a ride with the nearby villagers. At that time, there was a female worker, short and chubby, who took a ride on a tractor with a nearby villager. When they were on Qingsha Mountain Road, there was a car accident. A drunk driver drew a jeep and collided with the tractor, getting caught in a female worker's ponytail, pulling her off the tractor and dragging her on the ground for hundreds of meters. The jeep finally stopped when it hit a tree, and the female worker died on the spot. Although the driver was later imprisoned, a young life ended like this. The female worker was working alone in the factory with no relatives, so the factory paid for her funeral and buried her on the back of Qingsha Mountain. Since then, many drivers have claimed to have seen this female worker while driving on Qingsha Mountain at night, but no one believed them. However, what Uncle Liang said was something Liang didn't know. This traffic accident happened before Liang came to the factory. Everyone trusted Liang, and the factory leaders also knew about this accident. They specifically asked Liang about it and went to Uncle Liang's house to ask about it again. In the end, the factory leaders decided to solve this problem. They paid for a Taoist priest and took him to worship the female worker. The priest saw something abnormal at her grave and said that there was something abnormal in a coffin, and it needed to be dug up and buried again. The factory leaders were very opposed at first, but the priest said, "The dead lady cannot rest in peace now, and we need to help her find peace." This convinced the factory leaders to agree to dig the grave. When they dug up the grave, took out the coffin, and opened the lid, a foul smell filled the air. But everyone also saw an astonishing thing. The female corpse was lying on her side, with her right hand supporting her cheek, looking up, as if she was looking forward to the outside world. Of course, she had been buried for 4 years and had decomposed, but this posture was extremely strange. The Taoist priest sighed after seeing this, performed a special ritual there, personally drew talismans, and let the female corpse lie down properly again. He sealed the coffin lid, pasted the talismans on the coffin. He also brought in an excavator to dig the pit deeper, and told the factory to pour cement over the coffin. He reburied it and set up a tombstone respectfully. He offered 3 sticks of incense at the tomb and burned a lot of paper money. This matter was finally resolved. The female worker died young and didn't have the chance to enjoy any happiness in the world, so her resentment was extremely heavy, which is why she often appeared in the world. Not long after this, the tunnel on Qingsha Mountain was opened, and all vehicles could pass through the mountain via the tunnel, saving a lot of time and being much safer than before. Soon after, Uncle Liang retired and has spent more than 10 years of his retirement life at home. Usually, he takes care of his grandson, plays chess, and strolls in a park with his wife, living a very peaceful life. But every time he talks about his career, he will mention this incident. Liang often drives Uncle Liang to see the new tunnel and always passes through it. They never take the road on Qingsha Mountain again. But after Liang told Mu the story, he specially mentioned that every time Uncle Liang sees the tunnel, his eyes are full of respect. So everybody, this is the end of the story. Please share what you think of this story and your stories. If you enjoy my work and would like to help me to bring more stories to you, please subscribe to my channel or like my page, give a thumbs up to the stories you appreciate, and share your thoughts and opinions in the comments. I'd love to read them. Share the stories with anyone who might find them enjoyable. And I need a co-editor, everybody, a native speaker, to make these stories better. Thank you, everybody. This is Alex's Story Time, and I am Alex. I got a lot of good stories to share with you. So, talk to you later. Bye bye.